I'm Ben Canning, and this micro lecture is on thermal energy versus heat. As always, you need 3 or more bullet points worth of notes, a 1 to 2 sentence summary, and to do your follow-up questions on Google Forms. So before we get into the difference between thermal energy and heat, let's remember that thermal energy is the energy of how hot something is, or due to how hot something is. So here we've got a piece of glass being kind of put into a furnace, probably for creating some piece of art later on. And so there's a lot of thermal energy present because it's extremely hot. Now, before we can also talk about what heat is, we also need to talk about something else related, and that's the idea of what cold is, or what coldness is. And specifically, it's not anything new. So before we talk about that, let's talk about something we're more familiar with, which is light. So you think of it, if we have something that's very bright, it means there's lots of light present. We've added a lot of light to the scenario. However, if something is dark, it's not that we shined darkness onto it, it's not that we added darkness to the thing, it's really just that we took away any light that was there, or blocked it, or absorbed it, or did something to it so that it's no longer kind of present. So darkness isn't a new thing, it's actually just a lack of light. Similarly, coldness, or something being cold, isn't a new thing. It's not that this ice has extra coldness to it. It's really just that it has less thermal energy, or a lack of thermal energy, and therefore it's cold. Just like how something that's dark right here just really has a lack of light, and that's why it's not, or that's why it's dark. So keep that one in mind. Cold is not a new thing. It's really just a lack of thermal energy, or the energy due to warmth in that sense. So to recap, in other words, when something gets dark, it just means that there's less light. And when something gets cold, it really just means that there is less thermal energy. So now we've kind of talked a little bit about thermal energy, and that coldness isn't a thing, it's just a lack of thermal energy. Let's actually delve into what is heat. Well, heat is really just the movement or transfer of thermal energy. So if something is warm, it has thermal energy. And if something is cold, it has less thermal energy, or very little thermal energy. And so heat is the transfer or movement of thermal energy from one object to another. It's kind of like work in the sense that you don't have work, it's just kind of something that's done. So heat is kind of more of an action, it's a transfer. So you can always think of it as heat transfer, and if you use that phrase, you'll probably use it correctly more often than if you just use the word heat. So again, you can't have heat, just think of it as an action. And then once that heat or energy gets over to the cooler object, or to wherever it's going, we just call it thermal energy once it's there. Another way we talk about heat is the idea of flow. So we talk about heat flow, similar to heat transfer. And heat always flows from the object with higher temperature to the object with cooler temperature, unless you're like forcing a transfer to happen in some way, shape, or form. So let's recap the differences. Thermal energy is the energy due to how hot something is. When something gets hotter, it has more thermal energy. If something gets colder, it has less thermal energy. It's not that it gains any new thing, it just has less thermal energy. Heat is the transfer of thermal energy, or the flow of thermal energy. So as thermal energy is going from one place to another, one object to another, we call it heat in that kind of transfer. That's it. 3 or more bullet points worth of notes, 1 to 2 sentence summary, and do your follow-up questions on Google Forms, please.